Hey YouTube, Always Post 1975. Welcome back to part 3 of my Japanese Megadrive game collection that I had as a child. Now, there's not a pinch of PAL, there's one PAL game in these 10 games I want to talk about. But it's a very, very important one for me, because if it wasn't for this game, I wouldn't understand or appreciate and love the sport as I do to this day. Because until I played this game, I could never really get my head around it. That all makes sense when I get to it. Apologies if I'm drawing these videos out, but I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun talking about, the games I had as a kid, because I have a real connection to them, and yeah, they were a big part of my life, not just in a gamer capacity, but they really were a big part of my childhood, and I held them fondly, and I could waffle on for these bad boys for England. Anyway, I'm going to kind of be quick, a bit quick with the first game, because I kind of mentioned, we touched upon it in the previous video, and I've touched upon it before recently in other videos, but the first game is Batman. Absolutely love the case. It's that weird Ickle case that's in reverse. I don't know how many other games had this, or Japanese games I should say, had this case, but I love it. Plus it's also kind of a departure from, the other cartridges, because it's got these really big ridges. Obviously for her pleasure. Sorry. Yeah, so Batman, what can I say? My favourite 16-bit version of the movie. Before people say, oh, hang on a minute, yes, I understand that the Amiga had far more impressive driving and flying stages, but certainly the side-scrolling stages in this, pretty much, oh, it's upside down, my bad, pretty much, to me at least anyway, but obviously taste is a preference. My favourite, depiction of Batman, plus the music is amazing. Some of my favourite, but not my favourite. That's another game we'll talk about, which pretty much is my favourite music on the Mega Drive, but we'll get to that. Now, the next game I want to talk about is Merks. Or it's the sequel to Commando. I can't pronounce it. I did a gameplay on this a while back. Look at that for gorgeous box art. Now, I'm not saying the Western box art is as bad as sort of the other train wrecks of certain games, but it certainly is shite compared to this. Now, this game's really, really cool because you have the arcade game and you have kind of a reworked original version. Got this game for Christmas in 1991, and the reason I remember it so fondly, not just because it's such an amazing game, is my telly went tits up on Christmas Eve. And I just remember thinking, shit, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh my god, because I knew I was getting this game. It was the game, it was my main present that I picked. So the next day, when I got up in the morning, my parents let me set up my Mega Drive on their portable TV in their bedroom. And basically, I played both versions of the arcade game and the original game as well, I should say, and completed it, all kinds of crazy times, left, right, sideways, and all that cool stuff. And yeah, I played it for about 8 hours. I think eventually they were kind of like, we want to go to our room now and kind of relax and watch TV, before we go to bed. Get out. And I was like, but I can't play it any further. And I think it was one of those few times in their life that they looked at me and just went, seriously? Haven't you played it enough? And nonsense, you can never play enough games. So yeah. This game to me forever will be Christmas 1991. Yes, it was a proper pain in the ass that my telly went tits up, but at the same time, it's these things that make these experiences more memorable and enjoyable. Now, the next game I want to talk about is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Brilliant game. Oh, sorry Alex, almost forgot. Side. Now, what's cool about this game is I had played the arcade game at this point, and at the time I was always really disappointed that we never got the arcade game on the Mega Drive, but at the same time, when I played the Mega Drive version for the first time, I remember thinking it's more in line with what Sega were doing, this left-right side-scrolling sort of platformer, and that, kind of like Shinobi, well, not like Shinobi, but you know what I mean, a bit more traditional Sega to me. But one of my fondest memories of this is, because obviously it was before the Mega Drive was released in the UK. You remember you used to do swapsies on the school bus? I don't know what the politics were. Never in the morning, always in the the afternoon at like 3:30 when you were coming home. And the kid that I used to say, the other kid who at school who had a Mega Drive, and we used to do swaps and stuff like that. We swapped games back, and I got this back. And the funny thing is, the kid sat on the other side of the coach to me, who would later on become a very, very good friend of mine, a kid called Carlos. In fact, it might even be this game that started our friendship. So, cool beans to that. He was a massive, massive Michael Jackson fan. I wasn't. But I wanted this game because I just couldn't get my head around the fact that it's not the arcade game, but it's a Michael Jackson game. on the Mega Drive. I have to have it. It gets kind of slated. I think Angry Video Game Nerd kind of said it was bad and people all jumped on the bandwagon, but I think it's a very, it's not perfect, but a very, very solid and enjoyable game. But yeah, he was looking at the corner of his eye and I knew it, and I milked the moment, you know, to be like cool and shit like that. And he was like, what's that? And I went, oh, it's Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, and passed it over, and I think he just went, what the hell's a Mega Drive? Oh my god, there's a Michael Jackson game? Because obviously this predates all the other versions, you know, like, the other versions, I should say, on Spectrum, Amstrad, Commodore and stuff like that, which are a different game entirely anyway, but you know what I mean. Yeah, and it was just, alright, you know, I was an asshole at school, like, you know, I just want to be cool. But yeah, that's really, really funny, because I think, thinking seriously, as I said, it might be what started our friendship. Now, the next game comes back to that, the guy who always felt like, you know, he had to compete in the... School was one long show and tell, and look what I got, you haven't got this yet. And that game would be Shadow Dancer. I think I've mentioned this before. Look at that for gorgeous box art. I think I've mentioned it before, but yeah, he bought this, he got bored with it, and he sold it to me. And to this day, I will be forever grateful, because I bought it for pretty much half the price, and it was still kind of a new game. Well, I say kind of a new game, it wasn't even out in the United Kingdom, but lots of people bash it because they say it's not you know, a direct port of the arcade. I'm not sure what the logic was behind doing that, and while I love the arcade, I think probably, maybe because I played this as a kid, this is my favourite version of it. It's not an arcade port, but it's a certainly, you know, solid and brilliant Shinobi game. It plays more in line with the original Shinobi than the arcade does, if that makes sense. But yeah, oh, and random fact, I bitch and moan about, you know, the westernized version of Japanese box art. This game is gorgeous. That's probably another contender for fucking shite western box art, is the Shadow Dancer cover. I mean, what is that? Seriously, that's giving... In fact, I go as far as to say it makes the western box art for Strider look good. Controversial, I know. Now here's the PAL game I want to talk about. John Madden American Football. I bought this from the same place I bought Arnold Palmer, so it was second hand back in the day when I bought it. I think I paid again about 15 quid for it. And American football, for those of you outside the United Kingdom, North America I should say, has always been popular in the United Kingdom thanks to Channel 4. Oh, Channel 4. I remember when you were still cool before you became a train wreck of reality TV. But yeah, Channel 4 made American football kind of cool, brought it to the masses, but I could never quite get my head around it. But this got such good reviews in all the magazines, particularly Mean Machines, that when I saw it for 15 quid, I just took a punt. Alright, I had the cardboard one back in the day, which was kind of, you know, the green and black cover with a proper photo of Madden in the middle. But the reason I bought this one was, quite frankly, cardboard, it doesn't age well, does it? So I didn't want to spend stupid money on it, and that was a PAL version, so I just bought this. By the way, this thing weighs a ton. Look at the manual. Seriously, it's like fucking Yellow Pages. But I did not know how or understand the rules of American football until I played this game. This game taught me the rules of American football, and yeah, and forever, you know, it will hold a place in my heart simply because of that fact. Because I absolutely love and adore this game. I think it's incredible and it's brilliant, and it's just such a polished gem. But as I said, it still has a place in my heart, because if it wasn't for this game, I don't think I would watch American football now. You know, I watch the Super Bowl religiously every year and have done for, you know, well, since this game came out. And it wouldn't be for, you know, for that reason other than this game. It's a freaking gem. Ooh, now here's an interesting one. Another one I bought from the in-shops, which is currently, those of you who live in my neck of the woods, it's now what Wilkinson's is in Bedminster. But I bought this game from the in-shops, and I bought it because I was, well, I had some pocket money, but not too much pocket money, and it was 20 quid for whatever reason. I don't know if it was a budget game when it was in Japan, but it's Assault Suit Lenos. Look at that box art. Absolutely fantastic. Side, it's a side-scrolling shooter. You have a 3 choice of weapons. You like a shrapnel cannon, a machine gun, and a grenade launcher, and it's balls hard. It's so balls hard. I don't think I've ever progressed past level 3, but this, quite frankly, has the best music I've ever heard on the Mega Drive. Yes, I am going there. And we're going to be really boring random fact. The guy Sam I talked about in the last video, I took my Mega Drive over to his house once and he was learning guitar, and he actually recorded the soundtrack off this game. He still has it on a Merks C60 tape. And then after he recorded it off, he used it, you know, after I came back to my house, he used it over the next couple of weeks, and he learnt the music and played it on the guitar, at least to what he thought it was, because, you know, he's a brilliant guitarist now and he's got a band, but back then, you know, he was finding his way. But so seriously, Assault Suit Lenos, I don't know what the Western version's called, but it's balls hard, it's proper tits frisky, but it's an absolutely fantastic game. Now, it wasn't until I picked up this game I forgot that there was one other place you could buy import games, and that was a place called the Model Shop, proper downtown Bristol, Broadmead. It's not there anymore. It's also the place I only ever saw PC Engine for sale at the time in this country, because the Model Shop kind of dabbled in imports, and that game would be Spider-Man. Now, as you know, I'm an absolutely massive Spider-Man fan, and there were no decent Spider-Man games at the time. Was there a Quest Probe Adventure on the 8-bit, you know, Spectrum and Commodore machines? I think, yeah, there was, because I still have the little mini Mysterio comic book. But other than that, there was no decent sort of Spider-Man games. And I remember reading a review of the import version in Mean Machines again, and it said basically, when you web swing full speed in this game, you're basically, you know, running as fast as Sonic. I don't know if that's true, but that simple fact sold me, because as I said, I absolutely love Spider-Man. This is a brilliant game. It's not aged very well, but if you love Spider-Man such as I do, then you can look past that. But yeah, and again, it was just buying a Japanese game downtown Bristol, you know, that's so cool. Next game I want to talk about is Crackdown. Obviously it was originally a Sega arcade machine, and then they ported it to Mega Drive, and how would I describe it? It's kind of like Gauntlet, but you have to use sort of some sort of tactical, you know, explosives. And brilliant, absolutely brilliant, amazing box art again. I don't know what the UK box art is for this. I'm pretty sure it's not as good as that sexy beast. This is a game that I bought without knowing anything about it. It wasn't that I'd seen it cheap. It was, you know, there was no review in Mean Machines at the time. I just kind of took a punt on it in the back on the import section because there was an offer and it was like 25 quid, and loved it, absolutely loved it. I mean, eventually got ported to everything, like the Spectrum, the Amstrad, the Commodore, and stuff like that. Never played any of those versions, but I know that this to me is absolutely brilliant, and it's epic because you did that as a kid, didn't you? You don't really do that now. I mean, all right, the internet, we had magazines, but now the internet rules our lives, and so money is, you know, it's important to you. You don't want to waste it or piss it away, but yeah, you just seem to do that more as a kid. You took a chance on something you knew nothing about, and more often than not, it came up, you know, smelling of roses. Now, the next game I want to talk about is Wrestle War. Look at that. Totally, I like this box art. I don't know what the, again, the Western box art is, but look, it totally ripped off Hulk Hogan. Now, I'm not a fan of wrestling, never have been. That's not to say there's nothing wrong with those of you who are. It's just, I've never been kind of exposed to it, but this is a game I played in the arcade, in that amazing arcade I always talk about called in Westwood Ho. And I just liked, because there were other wrestling games, but I just like this kind of, well, fake 3D isometric sort of angle, and the way the screen would flip when you ran up and bounced against the ropes and came back, and it just felt bigger and chunkier and better than anything I'd ever seen from wrestling. So I actually kind of put a lot of money into it in the arcades, and then when they put it to the Mega Drive, and it's by no means arcade perfect, but it's one of those games that if you look at the back of the case, it properly just, to a first glance at least, looks like a bang-on port of the arcade, and love it. Pretty much to this day, I think it's still the only wrestling game I've had on any of my systems. Hang on one second. Yeah, just scanning my brain there, it's broken. I think this is pretty much one of the only wrestling games I've ever had in my life. Adore it, absolutely adore it. I think possibly because of the exception of banging buttons to break holds and stuff, it feels more like a fighter to me. Now, we're going to get onto, quite possibly, it's not a terrible game, you know, there are worse games, but quite possibly is the one stinker in my Japanese Mega Drive collection, and that would be F1 Grand Prix, or as I like to say when I was a child, Grand Prix. Ooh, it sounds like porn. I don't know if you can see that. It's a top-down racer, which was kind of popular at the time. I remember I bought this out the back of CVG because it was cheap. It was like 12 quid. And if you love this game, you're not having a pop, you know, there's nothing wrong with you do. As I always say, taste is subjective. But yeah, I mean, I played the balls out of it at the time simply because you had limited money, so buying a game or investing in a game was a big deal. So I certainly got my money's worth out of it, and I wouldn't say I hated it, but compared to every other game I have, I think this is possibly the weakest game in my collection. I guess I retract the statement when I say it's a stinker, because I don't think it's a stinker, but it's just, I don't know. It's a game that, you know, it's funny, I talk about Crackdown and I say you take a punt, you know, you try something cool. More often than not, as a kid, it paid you back. But yeah, this was a punt I took, and as I said, I had my money out of it, but yeah, it certainly wasn't up there with my other titles. Right, so it's funny because I don't mean to drag these series of videos out, but it turns out that I still have 5 more Japanese games to talk about, so there will be one more, you know, video about my Japanese Mega Drive games and my childhood collection, I should say, and it will only be 5 games, so it'll be short and sweet. But there is still one more game after that, but it's kind of one that I didn't have as a child, and I'm going to put it in my sort of miscellaneous video that is just all the other games I have on the system. Anyway, thank you very much for waffling, and thank you for persevering with this series of videos, and I'll see you later.